Hi guys, Ray here from City Fan TV, and I'm joined by Bernard Deneen from the Citizen channel. And weather-wise, there's a storm brewing around Manchester, and FFP-wise, there's a storm brewing around Manchester City, or the club in Manchester. Just get that in there. Got to get that in. Yeah, guys, we're here. I know I've done a video recently on FFP and the charges there, and Everton and Forest and stuff that Stephen Boston said on TalkSport. But I thought I'd invite Bernard along. And forgive me for the way I'm going to say this, because it's not meant to be. We're going to do an idiot's guide to the FFP charges, okay?
Dummy's guide.
Dummy's guide. Bernard is not the idiot or the dummy, okay? Let's get that.
Both.
Well, no, neither of us are. But we just want to, people have got a lot of questions about the 115 or so or more FFP charges. I'm not going to go into nitty gritty because I'm not feeling nitty gritty because it's boring getting into too much nitty gritty. And even though Jack Reacher might say in an investigation, details matter or assumptions kill now, that's the new catchline. But we're not going to go into too much detail. I'd like to keep it more broad brushed. So I'm not going to get maybe everything spot on, but hopefully we'll give you some idea of what's going on, why it's different for Everton and Forest, what's happening at a little bit about Chelsea, what's happening at City, consequences, implications, and all that. But the idea is Bernard's going to ask me some questions, and I'm going to give you guys some answers as best as I can and as honestly as I can. So I'll give you a quick intro. I think it was last February, City would face these charges from, but you got these profit and sustainability rules. You can make about £105 million of losses over a 3-year rolling period. City they haven't been busted, okay, just been charged. We've got these charges laid against us. There'll be an independent panel, will convene an independent commission or whatever, and they will hear evidence from the Premier League's people or the FA's, whoever's doing it, and our people. See, I've not even got the detail right, whether it's FA or the Premier League, but it's the Premier League's PSR rules. So they'll all get together, and the Independent Commission will come to a conclusion. And if guilty, there'll be a penalty. Lots of people say that you can't appeal these things. I'm sure you can appeal almost anything. But that's our starting point. Now, look, we have done videos on this before. We've had Colin Savage in. We've talked in depth about this. We've said pretty much since Colin read the charges against us, he said there were 4 main areas, and Colin believes this, and I believe it as well. We are not going to be found guilty. Okay, we've been saying that for almost a year now. So we've done plenty of videos about that. You can go back if you want. I've got a playlist.
Are we saying we're probably going to be found guilty for non-compliance of not letting them look at things?
I think that non-cooperation is what we've been done before. So, guys, if you want to know a lot more about the finance, if you want to go into the nitty-gritty of stuff over the last year, I've got a playlist on the channel which is all about finances. Now, this is similar and different from when we were charged by UEFA and found guilty, and we went to CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and we were pretty much exonerated. Some people will argue, well, there was some time-barred stuff. You were not found innocent. You were not proven or not guilty. It's different. City were fined, I think, 20 million euros or something. It's a fair bit of money for non-cooperation with UEFA, but City said, look, UEFA were leaking stuff left, right, and centre, which was true. CAS said as much. That
were we not also offered to pay a fine rather than it getting looked into at some stage? We said, no, we'd rather get it looked into because we want to clear our name.
No, there was one in 2014 where we did fail FFP. We blamed UEFA for that because City said we were doing everything that you said, and then you changed spreadsheet a little bit, which meant we failed. I mean, it's one thing Everton have complained about with the Premier League's rules.
Moving the goalposts.
Absolutely, moving the goalposts. No jumpers for goalposts, but they're moving those goalposts. And at the time, our chairman, Khaldun Al-Mubarak, said we were fine. We ended up appealing. I think got it down to a £20 million fine or something. And he said they wanted to pursue it, but he said, we'll take the pinch. They thought it was all done and dusted. We'll take the pinch on this. It's like, we don't want to, we want to just put it to bed, but it was I think they were bristling with anger. And then to get charged again by UEFA. But I think that was because of all the clubs putting pressure on UEFA. That fell down. And people said, there's no smoke without fire. People trying to find a reason. Now, these 115 charges, four broad main areas. But I think we've consistently said for the last almost 12 months that we don't think City, a lot of it's going over all ground. So the charge is going over a similar ground, but we don't think we're going to be found guilty. So, Bernard, fire away with your questions. I'll do my best to answer them.
When these 115 charges came out,
yeah,
it was looked into detail, and some of them were the wrong charges. For instance, they were looking at paragraph 2, section 1, and they were looking at the wrong year and all this sort of stuff. Well, the 115 never changed. So, did the Premier League actually rejig and say, well, the 115 was made up of those 65 plus those 50. Now it's going to be made up of those 75 plus those 40. I mean, why didn't the 115 change when it was obvious it cocked up in the first place?
To be honest, I don't know. Okay. Now, I've read different people. I think I read something from the Swiss Ramble. He's an accountant based in Switzerland who rambles quite a lot, talks a lot about football. And I think it was him who said there were 125 or 130 charges. So I'm not even sure. People still talk about 115, but other people are talking about different numbers. So I don't know exactly. That's the detail I don't know. I don't know what's happened there. But basically, some of the charges are kind of duplicate charges or the same charges.
Things like not kicking off on a Saturday at 3 o'clock and silly things like this were in there, weren't they?
Where they'd obviously use a template or something and they've got stuff wrong, which is... It's highly embarrassing. And as Jack Ritchie said, in an investigation, details matter. If you can't get the basic stuff right, how can we trust you to get the big stuff right? You know? So that was really bad. But some of the charges, basically, you've got one charge that over a 10-year period. So you could have had a charge for something in 2000 and whatever it was, 10, and the same charge 7 or 8 years later. And it's every single year. So, you know, you kind of feel if you get off in essence of one, it'll go through all those other years. I mean, it might not be strictly true, but I think that's how we're generally looking at it. And yes, some of those charges were rubbish, you know, and it was an embarrassment for the Premier League to put this out. But what they did, they shoved these charges, same way UEFA shoved stuff out before it was too late for them to do something. I think last year, they had this something in Parliament. I think it probably was a select committee or something where the chief executive or whatever of the Premier League goes in, they answer questions. And there's been lots of talk about an independent regulator in football because football can't regulate itself. And they wanted to show they could. So the day before they went into Parliament, City were charged. So it was a rush job. Same as UEFA, rush job. You make mistakes when you do rush jobs. We'll talk about Everton and Forest soon. But Everton and Forest were charged the day before Richard Masters went into the House of Commons or Parliament to do this select committee. So they want to have this pretense that they are in control, that they will, you know, they can regulate themselves.
Are the same people who charged Everton and Forest, the same... You know, judge or jury. Well, I don't know how it's made up. I'll ask you that in a minute, or if you know certain things. Yeah. Is it the same people? Is it the same group of judges judging Everton, Forest, and City? Is it the same organisation, as in same selection of people?
It'll be the Premier League. It'll be made up, and I can't remember the actual details, but it'll be made up of I think lawyers. I think there'll be an ex football director of football from a club, something like that. It will be different people. You will not have the same people looking into Everton, looking into Forest, looking into City because it's too much information. If I remember correctly, the Everton case, and all right, I'll move on to this briefly, then we can flip around. Everton held their hands up and said, "Well, you know, here's our numbers." And they failed. So that was a very black and white issue. They had one count, they failed. But I read somewhere there was 40,000 pages of information and evidence and mitigation and stuff to go through. 40,000 for one. So you know, if you're doing that case, You can't do the Forest case as well, I suspect. It'll be different people. And you can't do the City case where there's 115 charges. So it'll be different people, but there'll be obviously lawyers involved. There'll be independent people involved on that panel who will come to once they've sifted through the information, will come to a judgment.
And do they, when they announce these 115 charges, and some obviously whoever does it, I mean, is someone working on it then? I mean, it's like we're talking about a hearing date, aren't we? When's the hearing date coming up? I mean, when's that's announced? Do they put it on the side of the desk? Do they leave it over there? Right, we'll worry about that in a year's time. That's what we've done. Or is there someone continually looking at that and progressing it somehow?
Okay. I mean, they made these charges. I think there's a lot of back and forth between the solicitors, between the lawyers. We've seen it was done very secretively. They didn't even want to talk about it. And they had to go, I think they were taken to court over this, that everything was so secret. And, the media wanted it publicized because no one knew what was going on. So City have been fighting all the way. All the way. They've been fighting about the legitimacy of this, whether things are admissible. They're not going to make this easy for the Premier League. And why should
Panic been involved yet, or is he there for the end game?
Oh, I suspect he has been involved. He must have given some information. They must have had a chat with him. He's one of the most, was it 20 grand a day or 10 grand a day? He's a very expensive, well-known barrister.
I thought it was 10 grand a minute.
That's just you and me, mate. That's for those films.
You should see how much he earns from his YouTube channel.
He probably does a bit better than us. I've lost my thread there, mate. Talking about Mr. Panic on the streets of London. But yeah, so City, as is their right. If you're being prosecuted, if you've been charged, someone wants to prosecute you, then you're going to defend all the way. You're going to, first of all, you're going to look at procedural ways to get things thrown out, because you don't want to go through that long drawn process of going through that. So you're going to try and stymie it and slow it down and stop it if you can. You're not going to cooperate. Can you imagine? The busies accuse you of something serious, and whether you're guilty or innocent, are you going to say, "Well, here you go. Here's some evidence"? You're going to fight it all the way, as is your right. So I think City, what City are doing is just what you'd expect anybody to do. It's taking so long. I think people are asking, why is Everton's, charge being done?
How long did the Everton thing take?
Well, the current one, they changed the rules in the summer. The rules are they do it within the season. It's got to be done quickly. It's expedited. It's done very quickly. So Everton are really unhappy because they got busted for their PSR failure. They got punished this season with those 10 points deduction, which they've appealed. But then the next set of numbers, because it's on a rolling 3-year period, has hit already. Okay, and they've been charged again in the season because the rules have changed. The last ones, it took them a little while. Now they say you've got to do it within the season, because when you fail, you need to be doing it as quickly as possible. You can't come back 2 or 3 years later. I mean, if Everton had been docked 10 points last season, they would have been relegated. So you're trying to do it as quickly as possible. Everton are unhappy that, hang on, we've been docked on that 3-year, we're getting docked potentially again based on the same numbers. Well, it's not the same numbers. It's a 3-year rolling period. You know what it is. You know that, and you knew you failed before. You should have done it
very quick. They're doing it very quickly. Basically, that's what everyone's whinging about. Of course, yeah. But you just said to me before, our 115 charges boil down to about 4.
Well, 4 different.
Why is the difference in timescale if it's only 4 really?
Well, there's 4 different areas over many years, because City are fighting it. That's one thing. Everton said, "Yeah, hands up."
No, who's to say Everton haven't done exactly what City have done, but thought, we'll take the hit here. What we'll do, we'll pretend that we've overspent by a little bit. But if they look into our books deeper, they'll find that we've fiddled it. I mean, well, what's the difference?
I think they do look into your books. I don't think you can pull the wool over their eyes. But I think the thing is, Everton have it. And here's another difference.
I mean, they've had an interesting with takeovers and buyouts and stuff. They've had a hell of a thing over the last few years, haven't they? With that, so I would imagine it's still quite complicated, and yet they've only come up with one charge.
But the thing is, they're charged of failing in the PSR. They failed that £105 million over 3 years, the allowable losses. They failed. They said, we failed. They hold their hands up. And here's the difference. Everton said, yeah, we're guilty. Here's some mitigation. Here are the reasons. Please don't, send us down. And they got docked 10 points.
It's like someone robbing a sweet shop, but he's got a couple of dead bodies in the cellar. How do they not progress it? Do they not move it on and say, right, you've admitted that, let's look a little bit deeper?
You have to submit your numbers. So and I suspect, I think it's only right and proper that they'll go and look into your numbers. They'll have some auditors. They will do something. They won't just accept what you send in. There's a lot of stuff going on regulatory.
So we put our numbers in, of City, but obviously because of the UEFA thing, the Premier League suddenly decided there's more to it.
Well, what they're saying is that we've overstated sponsorship. One thing that we've basically lied for many, many years. We've submitted numbers and we've been lying about those numbers. Okay, we've been submitting them for years. We've overstated sponsorship. We've had owner investment disguised as sponsorship. Those are the two things that stick in my mind, and other bits and pieces. So that's why they're looking at what they're talking about is illegality. Now, what Everton, you submit accounts, they're audited externally anyway. So they've got, and that's not by the football, by the Premier League, it's externally. And then the Premier League will have a look, I'm sure of that. But Everton, I think the basic thing is Everton said, yeah, we're guilty. They've admitted it. Whereas City said, we're not guilty. Categorically, we're not guilty on all of them. So they're fighting every single one of these charges. And they're probably producing thousands and thousands and thousands of documents and pages of stuff for every single charge. So you have to address each one. And that's what's going to take a long, long time because they're addressing each and every single one.
How many people on City side, how many people and organisations are actually involved in putting all this together? As in, not the lawyers, I'm talking about the basic information. As in, how many people would have to cover up? Is it all one person could do it, or are we talking?
No. In an organisation the size of City, you need a lot of people in on this. They've either got to be in on this. Look, we've seen massive organisations bigger than City who have gone under because someone's been cooking the books. We've seen insurance companies go. We've seen Enron, if you remember 20 years ago, there's a film about that, which led to their auditors getting busted as well. So, but a lot of people are going to be in it. You've got to be probably a senior enough level as in the finance department. The executives are going to be in on it, not just from City or the City Football Group, but from your sponsors. They're doing the deals. They've got to be in on it. Your auditors, your external auditors who report on your accounts, they've got to be either in on it, unlikely, stupid, naive, ignorant, negligent. And all right, look, as I said, Anderson's.
I think you summed up auditors there, mate.
Not all of them. Hey, I used to be. I might have been incompetent, but I wasn't deliberately incompetent. But Anderson's, look, they fell foul of this, and there is a fear that auditors don't look too carefully into things, because if you what's the right? I'm thinking the right accounting. So if you query the statements, or if you put I can't remember the right phrase now, but if you criticize the statement, you won't be chosen next year. They'll move on to somebody who's a bit more favourable, to your way of thinking. Now, the word will pop into my mind probably in about 10 minutes' time. Okay. But so, you've got to, because you want not just the audit business, you want all the consultancy business, the tax business, everything. The audit, usually a lot of companies, is a loss leader. You do the audit and you lose money on the audit, but you make money on the advisory stuff you give them. Okay. So a lot of people would have had to be in on it, as I said, from City Football Group, from sponsors, and all at a high level. And the auditors have got to be incompetent at best. So, and I said this the other day, if City have deliberately done something wrong and they get caught for it, how shit are the people at the top? They might be great.
Who would go, mate? Everybody.
Well, you're going to all be tied with the same brush, aren't you? All the executives will be tied with the same brush. That will be Ferran Soriano. That will be Cheeky will get chucked in there. Everybody, I think everybody. Look, Omar Barada, who yesterday left as City's chief financial operating officer to join Man United as a CEO. I think he's going to be there in the summer. A lot of people it'll be a big bus, and a lot of people will be thrown under that.
Would the Sheikh be involved?
Well, there might be. You would expect his hand not to have been on an email or a signature somewhere.
I mean, he's the very top, mate, isn't he? Let's be honest about it. He's obviously this sort of thing. It's not usually the top guy who falls on his sword. It doesn't usually happen.
He'll have underlings who'll deal with that. But here's another thing as well. It has been discussed at country level. So the Abu Dhabi government spoken to the British government about this case. So it goes really, really high. And, they undoubtedly will put pressure on the UK government to sort this out and make sure City don't have any problems. So but he will be, if City are found guilty, he will be personally embarrassed. Can you imagine the other G7 or GCC, Gulf Cooperation states, Gulf Cooperation countries, when they get together, they'll be pointing at them and say, you got busted, mate. I'm a bit flippant there, but it will be very, very embarrassing, humiliating for him. So, but I just can't believe. I've said this before. If you're going to do something wrong, you make damn sure, you do not leave any loose ends. You do not let yourself get open to get caught if you're going to do something wrong. And you'd think that they are intelligent enough. But having said that, if you think your emails are not going to be hacked, if you don't think about things like that, and you're quite open about your indiscretions, but at a high level, just 2 or 3 people, and someone nicks your emails, and you've done stuff wrong, you can get caught out. So, but I've said from the word go, if City wanted to do something underhand, under the table, there are ways and means of doing it. There are ways and means of getting away with, if you want more money into the club, there are ways and means of doing it. Now, when they talk about, I'm going to move on, just quickly mention this before you ask it anyway, about the sponsorships, people say it's inflated, or it's owner investment because, you said it's a £40 million deal or whatever, or £25 million, but the company only paid £8 million. So I think that's one of the things where Etihad paid £8 million. The rest of the money came from a different fund. And I don't know how it, as I said, I'm not going to go into the minute detail, but there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Etihad might have paid £8 million direct. The rest might have come from another fund. The money, there's nothing to stop. You might think it's not right, but I don't think there's anything to stop, money being given from one hand to another. I think the main thing is Sheikh Mansour is independent of what his brothers do. Why should he, because he's his brother, why do you say, well, no, you're giving the money yourself when it's my brother doing it? You might say that's a bit dodgy, but hey, I've always said it's the same as Warrior Sports getting into football when they'd not done any football because they were based in Boston, which is where FSG are. So what's the difference? All right, I know there are things called connected parties in the UK where your brother is, he's a related party or connected party, and your mate isn't. My wife would be a connected party or whatever to me, but I think her sister wouldn't. So, but I just don't, as I said, I just don't see, when I talked to Colin about it, didn't see.
Yeah, the only thing that ever comes up is the Mancini thing, isn't it? With the money, that always seems to be the one that is a bit shady from what I've ever read or listened to. Or
the Mancini deal it was said that he was he was getting paid from City a certain amount of money, and he had another contract with an Abu Dhabi club to give them. He was in an advisory capacity, consulting capacity, and he earned a lot of money from that. And they said that's a way to keep it off the books. Yeah, it is. But It all depends. Was he doing that consulting? There are grey areas, and you can say, he did 2 days or 3 days consulting a year or whatever, and he got paid £1 million for it. Now you can say that's overpayment. Yeah, but hang on. You see what money goes on in the Middle East. You see how much the boxing matches are going for hundreds of millions of pounds. They throw money lavishly everywhere. So yes, it is a bit. I think incestuous is the wrong word, but you might have your brother owning a football club who Mancini consults for, and you could say it's a bit dirty. But if I'm honest, a lot of accountancy, you're looking. Okay, I'm not disparaging accountancy here, but you're looking for ways to save money. You're looking for grey areas that you can. There's black and white and there's grey. And sometimes you go into a grey area and it's not a problem. Other times you go into a grey area and it comes back to bite you. We've seen it with some of the taxing with what's his face, that comedian Jimmy Carr. He did these schemes which they thought were legitimate. Turns out they were just a way to avoid tax. And there's a big problem.
Well, at the end of the day, Jimmy Carr he has to rely on other people. It's simple as that.
And also, look, my finance director, I remember when he did my tax, he ballsed it up. He cost me a lot of money. I'm not going to mention his name. I should do because he's a United fan. That's not why he did it. But he cost me a few thousand quid because he got some stuff wrong. And I ended up being liable because it was my tax return.
Just book stops at you, whoever it is, because it doesn't matter what the fact that you're not you're not the guy doing it. It's you that's signing off on it.
Here's the thing: you're always looking for ways to save money legitimately, or to do things legitimately. Now, you might do something and get it wrong, but you might do it legitimately. Okay, so and that's not as bad as doing something deliberately. I'll give you a very quick example where people are confused and say, look, this company's made profits for 10 years, millions and millions of pounds. These, big American company has an office in the UK. Why aren't they paying tax? They've not paid tax for 10 years. But if you've got losses brought forward, if you've made £100 million worth of losses, you can utilize those losses before you get taxed on your profits. So you've got £100 million worth of profits that you can utilize those losses on before you start paying tax. So people don't understand this. So there's lots of things that we don't, as I said, I'm an accountant. I used to be an accountant, a tax advisor. Lots of stuff I don't understand. And then you have to really delve into it. And you have to be willing to delve in. A lot of people, they come at a sheep. They've got their information from a few different select parties who are just there to discredit. I mean, if you think you're getting your information from Talk Sport or The Sun, and you think that's, kosher information, you'd be sadly mistaken. So you got to get.
Why is Nick Harris? Sporting Intel. Why is he after more people to grass on us? Has he not got enough? Have we not got enough problems? 115. He's so sure of those 115 charges that he's putting it out there that he wants more people to come forward. I mean, is he not confident, Nick? Is he not? What?
I nearly said something very rude about Nick Harris there, but you can imagine he deserves it. Look, I think he wants to put it out there. He wants to he wants to appear more important than he really is. Okay, to say people. He's kind of saying people come to me with information. I don't know how many do that, and I've said if you go back to the Man City Fan TV days, it's proven that Nick Harris is a dirty, filthy liar. For one of the tweets he put out, which for all my fallings out with Andy, I didn't believe was true. He intimated that Andy had given him some information. He'd shown him that well, I'm not going to go into the detail, but he's shown him that video. That was not true. But he put that out there. Okay. I've kept the receipt. Don't worry about that. So Nick Harris is a dirt, unless Andy comes out and says, yes, I give him that video. Do you believe he did that? Not me. Okay. Unless that happens, then Nick Harris is a liar. And I'll go far as say he's a dirty liar. I'm not sure how he scrubs up well, but I think he's just a despicable liar to try and cause. He was just trying to cause more trouble there. So asking for people, again, he's trying to cause more trouble. He's trying to push his, elevate his importance from a turd that you wipe off your bottom of your shoe into something else, to give people the impression that he's an important someone, so that people will give him this. I don't think anybody's going to give him information because he's a turd. Okay, and he's not trustworthy. Now, you go to him as a confidential source. How can you trust him to keep you? I don't trust him. So,
yeah, I mean, so really, I mean, I don't have much more to ask. I mean, I've been seeing various sort of dates being spouted about a hearing. Is there an official date, or is there anything happened on that?
This is more of the patheticness of the Premier League. So Masters is there speaking to the politicians, and he says a date's been set, but I can't tell you when that date is. A date for the hearing has been set. Cannot tell you when it is. So whoa! And as Stefan said on TalkSport that it'll come out of the blue. The announcement of that a hearing is taking place. This is the outcome. Will come out of the blue. I don't think so. My personal view is that it won't come out of the blue, because things are leaked so much. We saw with UEFA, things are leaked. And I said on one of my previous videos that Martin Ziegler from the Times gets a lot of sense. It feels like he's getting a lot of sensitive information from the FA or the Premier League from high up. Why is he getting that stuff? Why is he getting all these scoops?
Who does he support?
I have no idea, mate. I'm not bothered. I know he writes for the Times, sister paper of the Sun. You can make your own connections there if you want. But people give information.
I notice it is the Times who are sticking up for this guy who's left us to go over to United. I think they're the flag bearers for this guy that he's done no wrong, etc.
I've said it about these papers. Division and hatred sell. Hyperbole sells. And I think the Times are in the same boat as the Sun because they're owned by the same fella. So I expect similar tactics to the News of the World to take place at other of his media empire. So forget about Nick Harris. Move on. What was your last question, mate? Anything?
Yeah, it's obviously there's no set date as such. There's no
set date. So sorry. Stefan said it'll come out of the blue. I said I think it'll be leaked. I think it will be leaked. When Mr. Panic disappears for 3 days for something and no one tells you where he's gone. I mean, come on. Where do you think he's gone? I think people will either put two and two together, as in, several of City's lawyers are missing at the same time. They're gone, or it's leaked. I suspect it's stuff.
Just going back slightly, have our guys had to work on something different to what they worked on for the UEFA thing? Have they had to dig up further information, or have they had to have been okay with what defence we did for that?
I suspect it depends what questions are asked and what the exact nature of each specific charge is. Our rules, the PSR are different. The Premier League's rules are different to UEFA's in terms of the money numbers. So we can, in this country, we can lose £105 million operating losses over a 3-year rolling period. I think UEFA's is much less than that. So we've got a lot more room to maneuver. So if you're not playing in Europe, in European competitions, you've got a lot more scope to make losses. Okay. Which is beneficial for teams like Villa when they were coming up, before they get into Europe, or West Ham, or whoever's not in Europe can make bigger losses, basically. So I think that's important, and I think the nature of the charges will be there's more charges. There's a lot more to go through. So some of them will be different. They will be having to do, they're not going to be sitting around doing nothing and saying, getting a carbon copy. All right, you guys don't know what carbon copies are. But getting a carbon copy of their defence against the UEFA charges and popping it out for the Premier League charges. Some of the information will be similar. Yeah. Some of it will be the same. There'll be new information as well.
Can I just ask one more thing that I'm sick of hearing on social media. What about City? What about City? What about Chelsea? What's happening there? Why have they not been charged with anything?
Chelsea,
I know it's going off tack, but
it's important.
that I'm interested in. I hear what about City is
Never
be a hashtag, mustn't it? What about City? No. Surely there's one about Chelsea.
They very rarely talk about Chelsea because have a guess who's successful at the moment. Who's hated the most? Who's hated the most at the moment? City.
What's the difference? Are they part of the FIFA Premier League board that are charged us? Are they getting away with it because of that? Or
no one's talking about Chelsea because at the moment the big limelight is on Everton mostly because.
Why Everton and Forest? What? Surely Chelsea's their 3-year figures to come in the future.
Chelsea. Well, Chelsea have been investigated. Now, the thing with Everton and Forest, especially Everton, this is the first time a Premier League club has been battered like this certainly in recent times, in my memory. No one's been battered. Okay, 10 points is humongous. It's new territory. We've not been down this road before, so that's why Everton are in the news. Forest and Everton because the latest charges. That's in the news. City because we're hated because we're successful, and the cartel of red clubs haters, and most journalists and pundits are Liverpool, United, or Arsenal fans. That's why we get talked about a lot. Chelsea less so because they're shit at the moment. If Chelsea were up at the top of the table, they'd be talking about that a lot more. Chelsea's what this Todd Bowley said, who's the new owner of Chelsea, is that there were historic problems with Roman Abramovich. And in effect, I believe he was cooking the books. Okay, now they're holding their hands up. They were hoping that might be enough, but but it'll take some investigation because one, again, like you say, someone says something. This is the situation. Who's to know? It might be a lot worse. So there will be some investigation taking place. They can't, and forensic accounting takes time. It can take days to look through for certain information for certain things. So they might, and they're probably going back many years. Same as City's going back for a long time. Abramovich has been there for almost 20 years. So there's a lot there'll be many years to go back. And then they might say, well, you've told us about this, but we want to look at other stuff as well. Because again, like you say, they might either accidentally not have found something else or deliberately not talked about something else. So Chelsea's is a different case entirely. It's another one that's going to take time because there's going to be a lot to investigate over many, many years.
So we're going to have to wait for them to be successful. It could be a long time, really, couldn't it?
Oh, it could be forever, mate, the way they're going. But the Everton and Forest they're just looking at the PSR. They're just looking at those numbers, and then they look at the mitigation. And it's straightforward. And it's just a 1-year thing. Chelsea's over many years. City's over many years. City's so many charges. It's going to take ages to prove City innocent. They won't say City are innocent. They say you're not proven.
Yeah.
These charges.
Yeah. You've got to leave it open so we'll still get criticism.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful that it's just going to be the same as a UEFA one. We'll get a slap on the wrist for not cooperating, a little fine. And that's it. The thing is, my final thing is, if it goes beyond that, then I think City will throw the book at them. And I did a video last week, took a bit of criticism for this, when I said I hope Everton are relegated. I hope it's by 1 point, because that will kick them into action and go to court. I want Everton.
You meant it in a positive way, obviously.
Oh, yeah. It's positive for football. I mean, some Everton fans had to go and said, look, you just want it to happen to us first, so you know where you stand. Yeah, that's true. There is some self-interest. But I want Everton I want it sorted out once and for all. Is it allowable, FFP, this PSR, or is it not? Because I talked about this in the past. FFP is basically keeping the status quo. Newcastle got a shed load of money that they can't spend because of FFP. Okay? And their turnover in the last Deloitte's Football Money League was just over 200 million euros. Liverpool's is 700 million euros. So they've got, it's not a level playing ground. Having that's what they talk about, a level playing ground. Having the TV money shared between the clubs, that's fair. I think that's a reasonably fair way to do it. And then if you're shown more, you get more money. If you're successful, you get more money. But you get a basic, whatever it is, 100 million quid. Everybody gets that. But Liverpool's income is 700. So their capacity to spend is much bigger and greater than Newcastle's. I mean, Liverpool are third in the overall money league. Newcastle are 20th. Okay. You got teams like Bournemouth who are not getting much more than the TV money because their ground is, 11,000. Their sponsorships are really small. So is that fair? Does it have to be? The big clubs want to stay big. That's where the money is. The money's in the Champions League. The money's at the top of the Premier League. And by standing on the throats of people like Newcastle, Aston Villa, look at Aston Villa now. They're challenging for the top four. Now, maybe if they had they've got the money, but they haven't got the capacity within FFP to go and spend money on one or two players this window to give them a better chance of staying in the top four. Newcastle, decimated by injuries. The big clubs are laughing at them. They've got the money to go out and buy players. They can't even get Calvin Phillips from City on loan because he can't afford it, apparently. This talk of Kieran Trippier, I was shocked to read this. I knew they might be wanting to sell somebody. Kieran Trippier going to Bayern Munich because his value is probably low in the books. If they can get 15 million quid for it, that might be the difference between being able to go out and buy a new player or get Calvin Phillips on loan or whatever. So the big clubs, United and Chelsea, Chelsea are one of them. United, Arsenal and Liverpool mainly don't want other clubs to compete. Because if Newcastle and Villa are in the top four this season, at least two of those red clubs are missing out. At least two of them. So they just want it to stay the way it is. They want the teams at the bottom to stay at the bottom. They want to stay at the top. They hate City being here. They hate Chelsea being here. Look, another point about this is, if you look back at the history of the Premier League, okay, I did a video about this yesterday. Without outside investment, if you take City away, Chelsea away, even Blackburn at the inception of the Premier League, because Jack Walker pumped money in, even Leicester, because they had owners who put some money in. It wasn't huge money. Without those outside investment, only 3 clubs would have won the Premier League title. Can you guess which those 3 clubs are?
Yeah.
Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal. In over 30 years, only 3 clubs would have won it. And in fact, in the first 21 years of the Premier League, United would have won it 17 times. So I actually said City and Chelsea, outside investment has made the Premier League more competitive. They complained about City. It's just a small snapshot.
How did they win it in the first place?
Who?
Teams like United and Liverpool.
They had the money. They pumped money in. In the 60s, Liverpool pumped money in. The Morse, it was the Morse family, weren't it? With the Pools and Littlewoods. Okay, they pumped money in. United have had money pumped in. Teams who have had money pumped. Newcastle, when Sir Jack Hall was there, had money pumped in, and they should have won the league, but they lost it.
What was the last organically successful club?
No, it's hard to say. I mean, Leicester
Huddersfield in the 30s.
No, I'm sure they spent.
They had some guy spending money.
Everybody spending money, and I go back to Liverpool when Liverpool were formed as a money-making exercise because Everton were playing at Anfield. The owner of the ground wanted more rent. Everton said no. They went off across Stanley Park to Goodison Park. They set up there. He had no team there. He set up Liverpool Football Club so that he could make money from crowds going to his ground. Then he pumped money into them, and a few years later, they won the league title. That's how it works, and it's been that way forever until this FFP, which they wanted to stop it. Anybody else challenging? Chelsea had challenged, City were challenging. It was across Europe and England as well. They wanted to stop other people. If there was no FFP, other owners would have come in and blown Liverpool or Man United out of the water. Newcastle would have blown them out of the water. A Chinese company would have blown them out of the water. Sultan of Brunei might have bought some. All these rich oil states could have bought clubs and blown teams like Man United and Liverpool out of the water. Why should they be allowed to stay at the top artificially when they got there artificially? It's not fair. That's what FFP is about. And I want that test case to happen. It's about time it happens. Look, UEFA have been taken to court over the European Super League and they lost. So I would like them to be taken to court over FFP. I'd like a proper legal challenge for PSR so we know where we are. City fans, don't quibble. We don't worry about Newcastle. We want them to be successful, actually. We want them to challenge others. We don't worry about them affecting us because we've had our run. And if we didn't win anything for the next till we die, are you going to cry about it? We've had a cracking. You're a United fan at heart. But the truth is, we've had a cracking run. We've had a cracking run of a lot of trophies. It's not going to end just yet. But, you know, we don't feel that same entitlement as those red clubs. You know, we just, look, we've had so many bad times. We're happy to be where we are and get what we've got. We want more, you know, just like anybody else, but we don't have that same level of entitlement. We don't mind it being shared around. You know, and if we don't win it, fair dues. You know, we will try and get it next time. But they are jealous and they want to keep that status quo. And we talked about Omar Barada going to Man United. You know, they're trying to get success back on the football pitch because that helps bring more money in. It's all about money, power, and influence. But mainly money. And that's why FFP is there. As I said, I hope it's challenged in the court. I hope it's sorted out. This has been a lot longer than Dummies Guide than I expected. And if you've not got any more questions, I think we might call it a day, Bernard.
Yeah, no, I think I've covered, hopefully, what other people might have thought that I was asking the questions. I sort of knew some of the answers, but I wanted to put it out there. And it's because we can do it to death, can't we? We don't want it. We want it to get sorted, but as you say, it's not an overnight thing, is it? It's going to take a while, and we just carry on regardless.
I want to finish by saying, guys, please, if you've got comments, if you've got questions, pop them in the comment section below. I will try and answer as many as I can. You know, try and keep them reasonable. You've got, you know, I had a few fans who come on to slag City and stuff. It's pointless because, you know, you're not going to get positive responses. If you've got genuine questions, you'll get genuine answers. And give us your opinion. You know, give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video. If you've watched all the way through to the end, thank you very, very much. And if you haven't subscribed, why have you watched all the way through to the end? Please subscribe if you can. Hit that bell icon so you're notified as soon as new videos out. We'll have some. We'll be talking football, proper football, in a few days because we've got a game on Friday night. So I'll probably bend Bernard's ear on Monday or Tuesday to do a preview on that. Bernard's going down to the match, and yours truly. Well, I'll tell you that story. yours truly did not expect it to be sold out on Tuesday. I hadn't bought my ticket. I've got plenty of points. I hadn't bought my ticket. I thought it's not going to get sold out in 24 hours or 30 hours or something. And it was 9,000 tickets. Oh, I'm gutted. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. As I said, if you've got any questions, pop them in the comment section below. Let us know what you feel about what's going on, whether it's taking too long, if you've got any more questions you want to answer. Don't go into too much detail because I can't go into too much detail. My head would explode reading that stuff anymore. I left accountancy for a reason. I left doing tax for a reason. Bloody boring. And I hate reading through tons of stuff to find these little tidbits that I got bored with that. But guys, thanks for joining us. You take care. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you around Blues.